let's go over here, and this will be kind of like the first installment here. I'll be picking out some of these little tactics, advanced PowerPoint samples, right? Let's kind of start with this one, and it is from this free template. You can watch the tutorial and play with it yourself, but here's kind of what I picked up out of it. So essentially, this uses the Morph Transition to do animations without animating. In the past, if we wanted something to move, we would have to add all kinds of animations and stuff in PowerPoint, right? And Morph lets us do some really interesting and creative things with a transition instead of adding all kinds of individual animations. And this isn't going to be a Morph tutorial. I'll kind of point out how it works in general here in just a second. But here's what I like about using this particular technique. And if you watch the video, the tutorial here, you'll see the coolness that ensues. And you just understand that it uses the Morph Transition to do the vast majority of the animations. Okay, here's why I like that. It makes it stupid easy to modify, and you'll see that in the tutorial, of course. But what I wanted to do is kind of, again, reverse engineer this and show you a couple of the interesting things, and we'll kind of build a little something from scratch just to illustrate the concepts. Okay, so here I have several of the slides from the template that you will download for free. And if we preview it, okay, you might not be able to see it real well over the webinar, but I'll let it roll again. And what you'll see is that a couple of things just kind of pop out of this picture. Okay, let's watch that. Boop, boop, right? And then the next slide uses the Morph Transition. And if we preview it, it does kind of the same thing. You'll notice that it looks like a lot of animation, but it's literally nothing more than a Morph Transition. And it just does this a bunch of times for a bunch of slides. Okay, so let me show you kind of the secret magic here that makes a bunch of that happen. So let's take a look at this slide for a second. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to open up the must-have tool to work with templates like this. It's a good tool anytime you have a lot of stuff on a slide, and that's called the Selection Pane. And you've all heard me talk about this before. So if you go to the Home tab and then over to Select and Selection Pane, this shows all of the stuff on the slide and all the different layers of the slide. By the way, if you haven't seen my little tutorial on adding this to your Quick Access Toolbar, let me drop a link in the chat box for you, and it'll be with the replay too. Shows how to put commonly used stuff for us as video creators right up here. Remember, I had to go to Home and then Select and Selection Pane. You can also get to it by clicking on any object, going to Format and Selection Pane. But you'll notice that's like 3 movements and multiple clicks. I do this no matter where I am. You know, I could be on any tab. You just, boom, there's the Selection Pane. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and hide all of the stuff on this slide. Right? So after I hide everything, I still have something here. What this tells me is that this is a background image. The slide itself has a picture for a background. Right? Everybody with me? If that wasn't the case, this would be what? A blank slide. But it's not. There's a picture there. So I'm going to right click on it and say Format Background. And under Fill, yep, there it is, Picture. Fill the background of this slide with a picture. And you can pick the picture that you want. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at in general. This slide has a picture for a background. Okay. And then if we show all again, and I'll go ahead and hide the text here, you'll notice that there are a bunch of shapes. And this is a cross, but you don't really see anything, right? Here's another one. So there are these shapes that are kind of scattered across the slide. But it's not like a traditional shape, is it? Because I can't see the cross shape. So let me show you the technique here. Let's take a blank slide, and I'm going to right click, and we're going to format the background. And for the fill, we're going to add a picture. From File, and let's just pick one and say Insert. Right? So now, okay, it's starting to look a little bit more like the slides up here. But let's now go ahead and let's add us one of those cross shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a shape, and I'm going to use the cross. These are my recently used shapes. If you haven't used it recently, it'll be down here in Basic Shapes. So let's pick that. And I'm going to hold my Shift key so that it maintains perspective. And let's just kind of do that. Right? So that's what I would expect to see for a cross. Let's go back to the Selection Pane. For a cross. But yeah, it's different, isn't it? The reason it's different is, let's click on this guy. Let's take the outline off, because those are almost always worthless. Here's kind of the secret sauce. So I'm going to right click on the shape, and I'm going to go to Format Shape. And instead of, a solid fill or even a picture fill, see this right down here? Slide Background Fill. Watch what happens when I click this. It looks like it went away, doesn't it? But in reality, what happened was it took the portion of the background image that it is sitting on top of and filled the shape. So the net effect is that it blends in. Okay, so that's all well and good. How do we use such a thing? The way we could do something interesting with this technique is that now, I'll click on the object, our cross. Let's add an animation. And let's add, just a shrink and grow effect to it. And what you'll see is that the shape, which is filled with the background image, let's go to our animation pane. Let's look at the effect options. So I can make this, this is growing because it goes to 150% of the size. By the way, if you want something to shrink, you just make this number less than 100. So you click here and let's go to custom, and I'll change this to like 70%. And now it's going to shrink instead of grow. Right? Let's undo that because I think the grow plays a little bit better. So that's kind of an interesting little way to get a little visual pop to a particular image. I could copy this shape and paste it all over or do some different things, but I want to kind of keep this sample simple. So that is a technique that not a lot of people know about. Fill a shape with slide background fill, okay? And it will kind of automatically, once you add an animation to it, kind of do that interesting little thing. So let's kind of kick it up a notch. Let's right click on this slide, and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay? And what we're going to do on this second slide is the magic of morph. So let's go to Transitions, and add a morph transition. So the thing with the morph transition is, what happens is morph will take whatever is on this slide, and if we duplicate that slide, then make changes on this second slide, morph will make those changes animate. So again, I'm not really going to get into morph too much, but let me demo this and we'll kind of see the effect. So here's our original. We got, this kind of cool shape here, and it blends in and it does its little pop out thing. On the second slide, the exact same thing is going to happen because we duplicated it. Let's make some changes. So on the second slide, let's right click, let's format the background, and let's change the image to kind of anything. Okay, so I made a change. I still have my shape here, but see what happened? The image that fills the shape changed also. Why? Because I changed the background. And the shape is set to use whatever the background is as my fill. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And let's do one more thing. Let's just take our shape and let's spin it around. Right? So now, what morph is going to do is it is going to take this slide and it is going to morph our changes into this slide. Okay, so let's kind of see what happens. I'll hit the preview button here. And I think on my second slide, let's go to the animations pane and let's delete this animation just to make the morph effect come across a little bit better. Okay, so here we got our guy, and let's go to this. You know what? Let's kick it in the slideshow mode. So here's our guy. We added, a little emphasis animation, and then morph kind of takes over and does the deal. So that's just a really interesting way to make something change picture-wise using the morph transition and shapes with slide background as fill. That is what all of this is about. And Arif, adds a bunch more shapes, basically just making those changes. Nice, huh? So what do you guys think of that? Kind of a fun little technique? Yeah, nice. Yeah, always learning something new from these cats. They're crazy.